You're listening to Beyond Insights, your go-to podcast for all things accounting, business, and technology.
From cybersecurity and AI innovations to sustainability and work-life balance, we've got you covered.
We host insightful guests from different backgrounds, industries, and locations all around the world.
From this diversity of thought, we aim to find solutions to some of our most pressing business problems.
Thank you for tuning in. Let's dive right in and go beyond insights.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Today I am joined by Jared Bailey, who is the founder of RightHand CFO. RightHand CFO offers small businesses the opportunity to level up their business with a finance and accounting expert who clarifies financial data to elevate decisions. Their vision is to enable business owners to invest time and energy in building relationships, creating memories, and living in purpose, which makes the world a better place. The firm empowers business owners to make data-driven decisions, and so I'm really excited to welcome Jared onto the podcast today. Thanks so much for joining us, Jared.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I wonder if maybe you can tell us a bit about your background and why it is that you started RightHand CFO.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I started out in the financial services industry as a financial advisor. I worked in that world for quite a few years, working with individuals, financial planning, investment planning, retirement planning. Got more involved and interested in working with business owners specifically, and kind of changed paths a little bit. Went back to school, got a master's degree in accounting, worked in public accounting for a few years, and then just kind of jumped all over the place in the consulting capacity, business to business sales. I've always just had a huge drive and passion for working with individual business owners. And my most recent, before I started RightHand, was actually working with a much larger organization in the same capacity, so CFO for hire. At one point I had 25 or 30 clients that I was working with in a CFO capacity for. And then just kind of decided that I needed to be able to do things the way that I wanted to do it, in a way that fit in line with my passion and my desire, other than just, here's a client that you need to work with, here's the way that you need to go about doing business, you need to do it in our world. When my passion wasn't necessarily in line with theirs, I decided to kind of go a different direction. That's where RightHand CFO was born, which was started, as you know, but the listeners don't, in February of this year. So I branched out in February of this year from my previous engagement to doing RightHand CFO. It started with two clients, and quickly realized that there's just this massive need for small business owners to have somebody that they can partner with to have clear data, reliable data, and somebody to interpret it for them in a way that they can understand it in their terms. Not to mention to have somebody to be able to have a conversation with that understands who they are, where they are, what their business is doing, what their business is experiencing, and then to have those hard conversations. It just reminds me, I had a conversation last week with one of my clients, and there were some things that were going on that some hard decisions had to be made. And the response was, I'm just so glad that I have you. I don't have anybody else that understands me that I can talk to about these things. You're always honest with me. You're always raw with me. And I feel like I can trust you more as a business partner than as anything else. So I think that really kind of drives home our mission, that statement, and our vision of what we're doing. And the reason that I started RightHand CFO was we do truly have a deep burning passion for what we do and business owners and making an impact in their lives so that they can show up in the way that they need to for their families and their clients and their communities, just like what you read in my mission statement. So all of that to say, we've had incredible growth and partnering with SIFT and you guys has been an absolute joy and pleasure. So I'm happy to be here today to share my vision, my mission, and to be able to shed some light in anything that I can do to aid in the community's knowledge base.
I think that's amazing, and especially you've only been going for a few months, and the kind of growth that you've seen, I think it's really a testament to the great work that you've been doing and to that mission that you have.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been very blessed.
For everyone watching today, our kind of topic is AI, which is obviously a very big buzzword, something that we've recently added on SIFT as well. And I know something that really interests you, Jared. So I wanted to know what prompted you to start using AI in your accounting practice?
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing that I struggle with, and I've said that most people struggle with in our industry, is capacity and time. I think everybody that is actively working in this industry and growing the way that I'm growing understands that there's once again, a huge need for people to have to create reliable data for business owners. And I think the biggest thing that I'm struggling with, even though I've hired some staff and am working on training and getting those people up and working, and they're doing a great job, but the biggest thing that we struggle with is capacity. Our time is very, very short, and our time is very valuable. And our highest and best use of our time is not necessarily being inside of QuickBooks and reporting transactions and doing those repetitive tasks that we can sort of automate. So when I started thinking about how am I going to scale this company to ultimately where I can have the most impact, which is having one-on-one conversations and strategy conversations with my clients, it's not inside of QuickBooks. Even though the bookkeeping in QuickBooks or Xero, well, not Xero at this point, Xero is very important. Doing those things are incredibly important for our clients. It really is low priority. So I wanted to find a way that I can automate as much of that as possible, and AI really has been a big piece of that.
And where do you think you first learned about the potential of using AI as part of your toolkit?
Well, honestly, one of the biggest places that I started was when you guys launched the AI capabilities inside your software. I didn't notice right away that it was going to help me with the repetitive tasks, but one of the things that it did help me with was it gave me a really nice, quick report that I could glance through with some high-level commentary to be able to provide high-level insights to my clients without having to spend hours analyzing the data. So that was one of the first places where I was like, oh, wow, maybe AI does have some place. And then I started doing some more research on how can I start to unload some of these repetitive tasks. And it turns out there's quite a bit of opportunities within the accounting world and in the financial technology space that we can reduce some of our repetitive tasks by utilizing some of those softwares.
I think that's awesome, and obviously always love to hear that you're using Sift, but I suppose are there any other tools that you've been using that have also helped you in this sphere?
Yeah, there is. One that I've started using over the last couple of months is actually Keeper. It is a software that is built for a couple of levels. It's built for a practice management hub where you can build out your monthly closes for your clients. That it automatically will go into the recorded transactions and look for anomalies. It'll help you recognize that this transaction is typically recorded in this way. This month it was reported a different way. Is that a different transaction than normal, or is that something that you need to adjust? So it makes that review process a lot easier in that space. And it also helps with the client communication and practice management. So directly from that, we can communicate to our clients in their own dedicated white labeled hub. They can upload their statements, and we can communicate directly through them. It has been a pretty big time saver for us on our monthly closing procedures, from client communications as well as our laborious processes, because it's able to spot the things that we miss.
Yeah, I think that is one of the benefits definitely of using AI, is that there's certain things that it can pick up on that the human eye will most likely miss.
Right. It's very helpful.
In terms of kind of learning to use these AI tools, did you find it to be a steep learning curve? How were you able to integrate this into your processes?
Well, I can tell you at this point, it is still a learning curve. It's not something that it's not as intuitive as we want it to be. I think one of the things that I think it was Steve Jobs was talking about, in order to make personal computing mainstream, we have to make it more complicated and ultimately more expensive to be less expensive. And that's kind of one of the things that we're experiencing right now, is that in order for us to have all of the tools that we need to be scalable the way that we need to scale, it's going to be very expensive. So not only do we have to have a lot of software and a lot of up downtime on these softwares to learn them and train them and make sure that they're working. There's a lot of research on our end to make sure that that is the right process. It's kind of, a lot of times a guess and check. I've experimented with 2 or 3 different ones that really weren't going to be a good fit. Not necessarily just because it's not a good piece of software, but because the adoptability and the integration into our day-to-day wasn't as user-friendly and easy to do. So I would say we are still experiencing some struggles with implementing the softwares and running with them, but every day it's getting a little bit better. And I think that's kind of the name of the game with this advancement is it the only place to start is to start at day one. And then tomorrow's going to be a little bit better and then a little bit better. And I'd say we've had some growing pains in that. Utilizing that software I was telling you about, one of my clients sent me a message inside of the client portal and it went unnoticed for a week. And they're like, what's going on? Why aren't you responding to me? He said, well, I'm so sorry. So all I could do is just fall on the sword and tell you that I just didn't see it, and I'm sorry. So there is some potential weaknesses in our client relationships to get over, and it takes kind of effort on our end, clients end, our employees end, to just take baby steps and know that ultimately the end result is going to be better than it was when we started for everybody.
And on the subject of introducing your clients to some of these new processes or these new tools, how do you find that they take to the idea of you using AI in your practice? Have they been receptive to the idea? Has there been a bit of pushback?
So I would say it is kind of a multi-pronged approach. I am not rubbing it in their face that we're using AI. We are communicating that we are using technology to streamline our processes. And I think that I've done a very good job of communicating with clients that our pricing structure is evolving because we're a brand new business. But ultimately, our hope is to keep our prices very competitive and reasonable for those small business owners. And in order for us to do that, we have to have scale. And in order to have scale, we have to have software. So they do understand that we have to utilize technology to be able to grow. And for them to be able to have their one-on-one time with me that they find so valuable, my time isn't spent inside of software. My time is spent on the phone or on video calls with them. So utilizing the software and the AI and the staff to be able to create that repetitive task that has that report that they ultimately dream for and desire takes a mutual effort of human and technology. So they are appreciative of what we're doing. But I would say if I went to them and said, all of the bookkeeping is done by AI, all your reports are done by AI, I just show up and I'm just a face, that wouldn't necessarily go over very well. That's not what we do. And that may at some point be a piece of some of our service model. Some maybe an entry-level tier, whereas they're not getting a lot of our one-on-one analysis. They're getting just kind of some reporting and a phone call. But right now, it's a blended approach.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's part of what you're doing, and I think the aim of using this kind of technology is really to expand what you can offer. So as you say, you can scale it from this is sort of entry level where maybe you're using AI or other tools to automate a lot of processes, and then that frees up time so that, like you said, you can spend more time speaking to clients and interpreting the data. Which I suppose leads to one of the biggest fears or things that people are quite skeptical about when it comes to AI is the future of AI, right? What's going to happen to accountants in the future? Do you think that one day AI is going to be replacing you? How do you see the role of AI in the future of accounting?
Quick answer is no. I don't think it'll replace me. Long answer is, or I guess longer answer is, I think that AI is allowing us to be better at our job. And I think what that ultimately is going to do is it creates better relationships, it creates better decisions, and it allows us to make a much larger impact. So I think that anybody that's concerned about becoming an accountant or studying accounting, I think that it's going to be incredibly important for them to understand that the grunt work and the financial statement preparation and bookkeeping stuff that we all learned in school is different. It's different. It will continue to be different because the technology exists that allows us to not have to worry about that analytical piece of it, or the technical piece of it. The analytical side and the relationship side is really where I would say those people that are getting into this industry that really need to spend their time learning is interpreting the data. Sometimes a computer can't look at the data and see those anomalies. It can't see that there's something going wrong in a different place that nobody notices except for somebody that has seen it before. It's also not going to be able to have those hard conversations with people. And I think that's really where I thrive, and I think what we do differently than everybody else is that I do spend an incredible amount of time getting to know my clients and building relationships with them and making those emotional deposits in their life so that I can ultimately earn the right to say, you're making a really stupid decision, don't do that. Let's talk about why it's dumb. And I've earned that with my clients, and they appreciate when I'm honest with them, I challenge them that. Those are the things that AI are never going to replace, and there will always be a need for that business consultant that understands the financial data and can communicate it in a way that people understand it. That is what accounting is going to be moving forward in my mind. It's not the bookkeeping. The bookkeeping is important. Making sure that the data makes sense is still important, but the bookkeeping piece of it is going to be a fraction of what we do.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think that just as new accountants are going to be needing to learn how to use all of these different tools and to know that accounting is changing and it's evolving and the tools are going to be changing, what they learn in university may be very different from what they do when they start working. I think they're also going to need to learn how to build relationships with clients. And like you say, if you want to have those tough conversations, which as the accountant, you need to be able to, you can't start there. You can't go straight in with, well, this is a mess. You need to be able to build that trust. So I was wondering on that, do you have kind of any tips or suggestions of how to start building those relationships?
That's a really good question. I think the biggest thing that I would say for people that are in this world is to spend a lot of time reading. I am a habitual, perpetual reader, and I read things from, general business advice all the way to very emotional, very psychological contexts like Brene Brown. Everything she writes is very relationship and emotional driven. The things that Simon Sinek are writing and Adam Grant are writing, these are all very influential people that are excited and passionate about human interaction and connectivity. So I would say that for somebody that's maybe struggling with that human piece, that relationship piece, read some of their work, learn what they're saying about what people are saying about human interaction and relationships, and then just spend some time thinking about, why are we doing this? Why are we on this earth? And if we're not going to build relationships and build up other people, then are you in the right place? Are you doing the right thing? Or are you living in your path? Are you living in your purpose? And I think ultimately that's where I wanted to marry the accounting world and the relationship world, which is what we do so well. And I think what we're continuing to build on is that we are not just an accounting company. I struggle sometimes to tell people what we do, honestly, because it is so much more than just accounting. It's relationship based. We ran into somebody the other day, and I was with my girlfriend, and I was trying to tell them what I was doing, and she stopped me. She's like, "Stop! You're not that." She said, "You are a business therapist." Tell people what he does is he understands people, he communicates their data, and then he listens. And I think that's really where I can draw on a lot of the things that I've read is when I do listen, I can empathize with who they are and I can communicate at their level. And a lot of that has just come through practice and through one-on-one communication and building myself as a good communicator through the influence of other people's works. So start with the reading, practice communicating with people that you don't know. Show up to a conversation with a genuine heart. Show up to serve. You're not showing up to take. I was listening to somebody the other day. I don't remember exactly who it was. It was on a podcast. It was on Stephen Bartlett's podcast, Thyroid CEO. He was communicating. He said something about his guest was on it, and I'm not exactly remember who it was. He said that he showed up to this event, and somebody was there that he knew, and he went up to him, talked to him, and he was excited, and he said, "I love it, Stephen. I love your podcast. And then Steven said, I follow you. I'm a huge fan. Do you mind if I get a picture? And instantly the guy's whole energy changed. And I think the thing that I took away from that is, if you're taking from somebody, and this is what he said, if you're taking from somebody, their energy is going to shift. If you're showing up, their energy is open. And I think that's where I try to do the most, is I show up to a conversation, I show up to a discussion, or I show up to a new client meeting or any relationship meeting. Show up to serve and build relationships and serve how you can.
Yeah, I think definitely that's really good advice. I find it so interesting as well. I'm also a really big reader, and actually last week on the podcast, Jodie Lee and I were discussing sort of 3 top business books. And also one of them was by Simon Sinek. So I think it's super important being able to communicate with people and have empathy. I think that is one of the biggest things I picked up in your response as well, is I can't imagine AI, as amazing as it is, it doesn't have empathy. It can't understand what you're going through. And yes, it may be able to look at some of the data and it can do amazing maths, but it's not going to be able to actually have a conversation with you where it understands not only your business and your data, but also the emotions, because, people are very obviously attached to their businesses, and it means so much more than just the money you're making at the end of the day. So to be able to have that kind of partnership, to be a business therapist, as your partner says, I think that's something that's still missing in AI.
Yeah, absolutely. The Infinite Game, Simon Sinek's Infinite Game, was an absolute game changer for me. It changed the whole way I perceive business. It changed the whole way I perceive my day-to-day. And I think that if people will utilize some of those teachings and find what they were really put on this earth to do, we can all show up in a better capacity, and we can all serve together in a harmony, in a positive way. So that's what I do every day. I show up to serve, and whatever happens, happens.
Oh, definitely a good place to start. Returning to some of the concerns that I guess people might have about AI, in terms of sort of ethical considerations, do you ever worry about, dealing with sort of people's sensitive data? Obviously, their financial data is very sensitive. It's confidential. I know there've been some scares where people say, what happens if you put your data into ChatGPT, for example? What's going to happen if it starts basing other answers off of that data?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's always a concern when you're dealing with people's financial data. You have to be so careful with the PII, the personal information and identification information. I've been in the financial industry for the last 2 decades, and I think it's just incredibly important for us to have social and ethical considerations. At some point, the AI has gone too far, or the computer learning has gone a little too far. There are things that people that are building it need to truly consider. That at some point there's just too much freedom of information, and I think that it's important for us as individuals just to continue to exercise judgment, especially in these financial situations. So when I'm utilizing ChatGPT or the other bots that we utilize, that I'm not putting social security numbers in it, or I'm not putting bank account information in it, and that I'm just being careful with the things that could ultimately cause problems. I think that's the biggest concern.
Yeah, and I think finding tools that do a lot of security checks, and maybe they're SOC 2 certified or GDPR compliant, checking that they're doing all of those checks, then that also lets you know, okay, your data is at least secure there, and that they also care about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
We've covered a lot here. I was wondering, I know you mentioned you recently employed some new staff. How do they fit into the picture in terms of helping? You said capacity was a big issue, and that's a lot of where AI comes in. So how does it fit into the picture, having these new staff members and then also using AI tools? How do you see the combination of new people and also new and powerful tools?
Yeah, that's another great question. The issue that I've run into so far is that I have noticed that the technology is making mistakes. It is doing a good job of recognizing things, but then sometimes it's like, wait, it's categorizing things in the wrong place because it just doesn't make sense. Even though that's the way it thinks it's right, it's just not. So utilizing our employees' oversight to what it's doing is important to make sure that it is not just too smart and doing things because it's just too smart. So what I'm doing now is I'm building processes and procedures to onboard new clients into the programs that we have and into the systems that we have, and then just making sure we have appropriate checks and balances in place to make sure that the data that's being inputted and is being reconciled and checked appropriately. The thing that it's going to do is that it's going to allow, my bookkeepers, or as we call them, or your bookkeeping specialists, they're going to, instead of being able to do 5 or 10 clients, I think they're going to be able to do 20. And ultimately, that's going to either do one or two things. That's either going to, expand our scope, allowing us to have a much larger impact, or it is going to reduce our price point, which is, once again, going to impact our scope and our ability to make a larger impact. I think ultimately what AI is going to do in utilizing our teams is that it is just going to make our jobs easier and more profitable. And I think that can do is that it allows us to either be more philanthropic or to make a much larger impact in our communities, or to touch those clients that may need help but they just didn't think they could afford it. I had a communication with my employee the other day around, I was noticing mistakes that I was making. I was noticing some mistakes that were not being classified and fixed correctly. And the biggest thing that I need to do is to be able to rely on the data and the work that's being done. No fault to anybody other than just learning. It's all a learning curve. It's all a communication curve. A lot of it falls on me because I just haven't. It's all new to me as well. But the highest and best use of my time right now is onboarding new clients, bringing in new clients to the team so that we have more clients in the world that we're doing, and then working with the clients one-on-one. And if I'm not being able to spend most of my time in that world, my time's not being utilized the best. So I have to rely on the data. I have to rely on the team to make sure the other things get done. And I think ultimately, once we get everything up and running, AI is going to be a huge piece of that.
I think it really opens up a world of opportunity, especially as you were saying, for you, but then also for clients and for people who potentially may not have been your clients in the past because maybe your services were too expensive. Now it's opening up this opportunity for them to access the service that they didn't have before.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of exciting things about AI. The one important thing I think that you raised, which people should definitely be aware of, is that it doesn't always get everything right. It doesn't have that
No, it doesn't.
that rigorous academic background. It doesn't have experience in the way that actual accountants and bookkeepers have. So it's always on you to check that what the AI is saying is actually correct and has it classified things correctly. And so if you have the power of AI and you are also checking that everything's okay, then I think you have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly.
So to kind of wrap up, I wonder if you, have any last thoughts of something. If someone was to take away just one thing from today's episode, what would you like that to be?
I think the thing that I continue to drive to, and I drive home in my business on a daily basis, is that we're all humans, and even though we have technology that's aiding with what we're doing, we're all ultimately getting up, waking up, and going to sleep and eating the same way as each other. And ultimately, what we are here to do is to serve each other in a way that makes our communities function better and our human experience a better experience. I think the thing that I would like for anybody that's listening to take away from today is that to not be scared of AI taking over your job. Embrace it as a piece of what you're doing to make your job better so that your impact can be better. If you're spending 30 hours a week, 40 hours a week reconciling bank statements because you're not utilizing tools that makes that job easier that exist, then you should be questioning whether your time is being utilized in your best capacity. And maybe your time should be spent either bringing in new clients or communicating with clients in that empathetic way that we just talked about. if you're not showing up to serve the business owners that you're serving as their bookkeeper or as their accountant, in that capacity, there's something missing, because we have such an incredible and unique opportunity to touch those clients in a place that is critically important and underserved. We serve in a place that's incredibly vulnerable for business owners. They have to trust somebody that has their arms wrapped around their data to not do anything that's unethical, but also to provide reliable data. And they need to be able to have somebody to have those difficult and empathetic conversations, to be able to help them make those very difficult decisions that they have to make. So not serving in that capacity, I think, as a bookkeeper or as an accountant or as a CPA moving forward, I think is doing the world a bit of an inservice. We can show up better by utilizing the tools that exist.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big thing I'm taking away from today is the idea of showing up to serve. I think that's something that we can all benefit from. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jared. I
Absolutely.
really appreciated this conversation, and it's given me a lot to think about. And I'm also really glad that we were able to talk about the impact of reading and the importance of that. So we have the impact of AI, all this new technology, and books that have been with us since forever.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're not learning every day, there's something wrong. You have to be pushing yourself and challenging yourself to get better every day, or you need to reassess, how you're showing up and how you're serving. I think you have to make yourself better to ultimately make other people better and to show up and serve the way that we need to. So, thank you so much for having me and allowing me to share my vision and my path and my passion. I know that we're making a huge difference, and I'm excited to see what our business is doing and to see how you guys are growing as well. So thank you for being a good partner with us as well.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure, and I'm excited to see the future of RightHand CFO and the future of Sift. So thank you for everyone who's joined us today, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Insights podcast.
Please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to right now.
And please share with any of your colleagues or friends or family members that you think might benefit from listening to this podcast.
That's all from us. Until next time, see you then.